one of the things I used to do in my career was I look at what promotion I want to have next, then I begin to act that part. So when I was in consulting, you get promoted. I start looking and say, okay, those guys who are ahead of me by a year, who are in this new milestone, how do they dress? How do they speak? What do they do? What can they deliver? What do they know? And then I begin to invest my time in learning those things. When you get to that milestone, basically they look at you and say, he's ready.
Welcome back to another episode of Ways. My name's Mohammed.
I'm Osama. This is the realest podcast, the greatest podcast in the world. No one can defeat us, bro. So we're
Why
here
is
to
that?
record. Because, bro, if you want to be the best at something, you got to think right here that no one can beat you. And in my head, no one can beat us. We're unstoppable. That's it. Khalas. Be with Allah and no one can beat you.
And I guess that's a good way to start off the topic, introduce the guest we have today. Only reason why I said that is because regarding this topic, it's going to be beautiful, how you can connect religion into a worldly thing such as business, the corporate world, and as far as tying in your own race. And that whole introspective, that whole perception, that whole, insightfulness, it doesn't come in a day. It comes over a lifetime. And to have that, it's rare. To be about it is unique. And the fact that we have this individual who can share these keys, ingredients, as far as his stories and how it relates to a prophet that's beloved in the Christianity as well as the Islamic religion is amazing. And that's why I'm so excited for you guys to hear the thoughts, to hear the perspective, the wisdom from our guest, Eso Ekeng. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Mohammed. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Now, before we get started, we must let the people know, where are you from? What country are you from?
Yeah, I was born in Nigeria.
And you're born in Nigeria. How long did you live in Nigeria for, like as far as growing up? Tell us about that.
I'm born and grew up in Nigeria. Spent most of my corporate life in Nigeria, but I've walked across Africa, in India, and a bit in Canada.
And is it true when they say that Nigerians, like the stereotype, Nigerians love education? Is that a true stereotype, or you think it's just hilarious?
Yeah, I think it's not stereotypical. It's got a large middle class, and then education basically opens up opportunities for you to do better, to make money. I mean, statistics show around the world that a first degree increases more than doubles your income from a college degree. A master's degree adds another maybe 40-50%. Then a PhD adds maybe a little 17% to your income. So education is, I guess, important for Nigerians.
And before we give off and we start this topic, I must give a little background. The way I met this individual was roughly, I would say, October, November 2022. I was working. He came into the store with his sister and his parents. And when I saw them, obviously I knew that they're a beautiful family. The way you were with your parents reminded myself the way Osama is with his parents. And I always tell people, I've never seen anyone talk about their parents, be with their parents, give reverence about their parents more than Osama. I've taken so much from him when it comes to that, right? So the way I saw you with your mom and dad was totally honorable. And the fact that you were taking care of them, I knew that this person was special. And towards the end, when you're about to make your purchase and leave, we talked briefly for a little bit, and I'm like, this is a very interesting person. Then you came the second time on Boxing Day, but on that day, it was so busy, so I didn't have time to talk to you, right? And I felt really bad. But luckily, you came back a third time, and it was a beautiful day, Sunday morning, and with that, we literally had an hour to speak. And when we spoke about all these different topics and the perspective and ideas that you had, I'm like, this person has to come on the podcast because it's rare to really hear someone, especially in diaspora, someone that's traveled all across the world, in the position that you have, because not that much people get that, especially where we're from. So when it comes to education, what did your parents instill in you as far as learning? Not only learning in school, but learning good principles versus bad principles. Like, how was that instilled in you growing up?
Yeah, I guess I would say, I was lucky to have parents who were already educated. My dad studied engineering. My mom was a banker. And, I grew up in a small town, really small town. Well, I don't know whether there were 20,000 people in the town or maybe less, right? And, for my parents, it was so important to differentiate ourselves. So we lived in a nice middle class home, and right around us were shanty shanty. I know hot. I don't know all the zinc houses and all that, right? And my parents just made it very clear to us that hey, you're in the small town. You're gonna meet people who are kind of like small-minded, etc. But you have to remember that you're coming from somewhere, and then you need to kind of carry that legacy. And it was so important. My dad did things that people would. I hear about Osama, honoring his parents, and when I look at history, my dad will leave his office, drive to a boarding school in a different town to sit with my sister to go through math assignments with her. I mean, who does that? So my parents like were really, really big on not just going through school, but like getting good grades and kind of like building from there. And then I've kind of like grown with that over the years. If you think about if I look at I mean the kind of standards that they've set, it's so important for me to continue to build on that, and they're obvious to instill it on the next generation.
And Osama, I know I spoke about you as far as honoring your parents.
Yeah.
People actually don't know that about you. Why do you think it's important to do that?
You know what's funny is because this guy, you say that, but recently I was talking to my mom, and she was pretty much saying how my friendship with you is so amazing because obviously, again, for people who don't know, Mo is the reason why I became a much more religious person, a better person. I'll keep saying that till like the day I die. No matter what happens in life, that's who he made me who I am today. He's a big part of that. But a big part of me being close to my parents is two things. One is I see how you would always like drop anything, whether it's school, work, your friends, to go help your parents' errands. I'm like, man, Mo is dropping everybody. For everybody, like it doesn't matter. It's like my parents are first. Like for example, I remember one time vividly, we had to like this like early on. We were like starting ways. He's like, hey man, uh, I'll be back in 2 3 hours. We'll start working after. A second thing, and I learned that from you, and I think I became a lot stronger. So now I took that mindset. I'm like, look, my mom, my dad always come first. Like I don't have to chill with my friends no more. I just saw my friends for the first time like yesterday in so long. A lot of them I haven't even seen in months. But is it nice to see them? Yes, but I would rather just be at home with my parents in case they need me, stuff like that. Two, on an Islamic perspective, for me, on a religious perspective, I could tell you that obviously, Mo, part of success is like being respectful to your parents. So if you want anything in life, you want to be respectful to your parents because yes, you can be good to God, you could like pray, you could do all that, but if you're not respectful to your parents, you're not going to have anything in this world. So that's why I'm really good to my parents, and I take a part of it from you, like, and I appreciate you giving me that comment, but a lot of it doesn't have to go back to you. To be quite honest with you, just to add on to your point about honoring your parents, I think it's really important to honor your parents because at the end of the day, there's no amount of money in the world that you can pay them back. Like your mom held you for 9 months. There's days where you were crying and then they had to wake up in the middle of the night and like how are you, how are you, like you can be the richest person in the whole world and give them all the money in the world, you're still not going to repay them for what you do. And there's certain things like I can even go down, for example, on a different level. Again, for your friends, there's certain things your friends will do to you you can never repay back because they were there for you at your lowest moment. And money, and that's why I say money doesn't buy happiness. But it's the certain things that you do. It's like, wow, this person knows he's appreciative of what I've done for this person. Like your parents know if they really love you and you're able to do as much as you can, they know you can never repay them back. But the fact you do small stuff for them is just a show of appreciation that like, okay, cool. He or she understands that like I've took care of them and now they're on their own.
Now, as far as your career, what did you do as far as being in high school, being in university, or whatever educational career that you took, and what made you want to become who you are today? Did you know what you wanted to do from the time you're younger, or you just tried different things as far as what you're doing right now?
Yeah, as I expect when we had our initial conversation, um, there because I'm a spiritual person, right? I my career is driven by, of course, my parents' influence, but I look at the Bible. I mean, I've read the Quran, interestingly, right? I look at the Bible and I pick out stories not just from the spiritual aspect because I say to myself, there are a lot of practical life lessons you get from these great books. And it can and a great segue to the life of Joseph and why I wanted to talk about Joseph because I look at my career. I went to top one of top three universities in my home country. I graduated top 5% in my class. I hold a master's degree, top 1% in my class, best school, in that country, so to speak. And, I've kind of pursued a career where, in accounting and economics and audit and all that, until I recently took a break to spend with family. I mean, I've been vice president at a company that has more than 50 million customers, right? But if I look at why I do those things, I kind of dovetail that into the life of Joseph. I mean, many people know the story, life of Yusuf, I guess, in Islam. Many people know the story about the coat of many colors. But if you actually read those verses and look at how he started and where he ended, there are a lot of lessons to learn, and those are the kind of lessons I learned very early, and I used to drive my life. I would say maybe I should just kind of like summarize and say the five P's of career success or professional success, etc. The first one I would say is purpose. If you look at Joseph's life, he knew exactly what he was going to be right from the beginning. Um, he had a dream. He was going to be a leader, right? He had a dream. His family and people were going to bow to him. That was his vision. He had that, and it was very clear. And this was at 17. A lot of 17-year-olds have no clue what they want to do with their lives. And if I look at my life, I'm saying I probably knew I was going to be a chartered accountant at age 10 or 11. Why? Because I always kept records. I kept records of basically what my parents spent on me. I was hilarious because sometime in my first or second year university, we were having a conversation where my parents were saying they'd spent a lot of money. And I said to them, no, you couldn't have spent a lot of money because I know exactly how much you spent. And they found it weird because I had a notebook. So when they give me money for pay your school fees or pocket money, buy clothes, whatever, I always kept a record, how much I spent, give them their change back. So they found me a bit of a weird kid. And I've always been like that. I've always kept records. So it was just a natural thing to go study economics, to go become a chartered accountant. I mean, I hold certifications in my home country, Nigeria, in the UK and in Canada, right? It's just been a natural thing. And right now, it's the same life I live. People ask, how come you're in Canada and you can afford to save so much or, and do so many things? I'm saying because I keep, you just keep records. So if you look at Joseph's life, he knew exactly what he wanted to be. I'm very sure of it. At 17, he said, I'm going to be a leader. You guys are going to be bowing to me. So that's purpose. I think it's important. You can't achieve anything in career without having purpose. I'm just thinking about somebody saying, go to the GO station, get on the train, 5 hours later, say, I should be in Ottawa. If you didn't get on the Ottawa train, you're not getting to Ottawa, right? So that's it. And that's what a lot of people say, okay, I need to discover myself. But I'm thinking, for example, I've got a daughter. Earlier on when she was maybe like maybe she was pretty young, right? I spoke to her about. I saw she had a flair for art. She's quite math inclined. I said, okay, do you want to do architecture? She said she'll think about it. So we kept her having those conversations over a couple of years. Now she's driving herself. She's registering for courses herself. She's picking her courses herself. She's telling me, oh, this helps in architecture. I'm just saying, so she's kind of found her vision. So I think people need to do those explorations very early, but pick something and then focus on it, or else you will not achieve anything. That's what the first thing I think I see about the life of Joseph. The other thing I would say, this is a word that we don't like to use in public, but I would say purity, right? Purity, but I'm putting encompassing that with integrity, with honesty, with transparency. Just using the word purity. I'm saying when in your career you need to be honest with yourself, you need to be honest with those around you. It's so important that people can trust you. You will find out that in the corporate world, for example, when somebody is say terminated or for non-performance, nobody hears about it. But when somebody's terminated for an integrity matter, it's in the news, right? Wall Street fraud and all that. There are a lot of people that left those Wall Street firms, because they didn't meet their targets. Nobody heard about those. So I'm saying it's so important. And people don't realize it. They feel, oh, I can make a quick buck here. But if you find out that a lot of great companies grew because, they had a commitment to delivering value to their customers, honest value to their customers, somebody will say, for example, if you find value, money will follow it, so to speak. So I'm thinking, if I look at Joseph's life of integrity, I'm saying he had He told his father the truth about his brothers. And you're wondering, despite the consequences of his brothers being pissed with him and all that, he was just transparent. He had an opportunity, for example, to advance his career by sleeping with his boss's wife, right? And he chose not to. He said, I can't do this to disgrace my family name. God is not going to be happy with me. I'm saying integrity is something that, sometimes you say, my hands were tied. But I would say, why don't you take the temporary setback of being honest? You'll be better off. When I was leaving my consulting to come into industry, right? One of my bosses said, you have naive integrity. You need to keep it up, never lose it. And, it sounded like an insult, but do you know what it means to have naive integrity? Like, I will be honest even if it hurts me. Now I'm thinking about it. I've been honest, all this while, 20 something years in my career, and I've gone from analyst to vice president, right? So I didn't lose anything at the end of the day, so to speak. The other thing I would say about Joseph, is preparedness. If you look at his life, you said this guy was ready to answer the questions that were given to him. You would see when if you remember when when the guys at prison asked him to interpret a dream, he didn't say, "Give me some time to think about it." He didn't say, "Let me go and consult with my friends or research or go to the library." He was just ready. And then the one that even blows my mind the most is when Pharaoh asked him, "Okay, what's the solution to the problem?" Right? He provided the solution right there. So I'm saying we need to be prepared. I mean, career based. A lot of times I find when I work with people want to they want to get a promotion. And it's when they get the promotion, they want to do that work. But in corporate world, it doesn't work that way. Nobody gets a promotion in the corporate world for a role they are not already performing. So you act like a manager, you deliver a manager's result, you get a manager promotion. You act like a vice president, you deliver a vice president's results, you get a vice president promotion. It's not like they think you're going to be a good vice president. No, you are already acting as a vice president. Then they make you vice president. That's my own experience. And I look at Joseph, look at all the work he done, getting himself ready. 13 years from age 17 to age 30, 13 years of being exceptional at his, managing his boss when he was in prison, managing the wardens when he was a prisoner, etc. So yeah, I would say that's another important aspect. The other thing I would say, which is back to preparedness, right? One of the things I used to do in my career was I look at what promotion I want to have next, then I begin to act that part. So when I was in consulting, you get promoted, you get milestone promotions every 3 years. So the year before that 3 year mark, right? Sorry, that third year before you get at the end of the year, right? So I start looking, I say, okay, those guys who are ahead of me by a year, who are in this new milestone, how do they dress? How do they speak? What do they do? What can they deliver? What do they know? And then I begin to invest my time in learning those things. I used to literally change my wardrobe. I mean, this deliberately change my wardrobe every 3 years. So for example, maybe you're a junior guy and you just wear a shirt and a blazer, right? Maybe the senior guys are putting on ties. Then I go invest in ties. Maybe the guys who are managers are wearing more expensive suits. You do that investment. And what tends to happen is that then you don't miss a promotion. Because when you get to that milestone, basically they look at you and say, he's ready. Instead of waiting, or maybe, for example, you need an MBA for a particular level. Don't wait until it's too late. Do it early so that when that's not a consideration in kind of holding you out from getting that raise. The other thing I think I would say is really, really important is actual performance. Now if you look at Joseph's life. They say he was excellent at managing his boss's house. So much so that the boss knew nothing except just managing his wife. Everything else was done by Joseph. You're wondering, who does that? You're a businessman, you brought this foreign guy, he came as a prisoner, and now he controls the guy that they said the Bible says he didn't even know about his money. So this guy kept accounts, kept inventory, did sales, managed the staff, that's trust, right? So that guy, I look at him and say, this is somebody who deliberately was delivering value. And one of the things I see, for example, in corporate world, is that people do a lot of work, but they're just going through the motions. So if there's a difference between working hard and working smart, everybody knows that, right? So if, for example, your boss says deliver a particular report, and then you can just type in the report and send to him, you've not found out what's the purpose of this report. Will it be better in a particular style? Does it have to deliver on a particular day? Is it what's the right audience, etc.? Those are the extras you would think about to say, you need to actually deliver results. Don't just work. A lot of people just work. Like, oh, I'm going to work, I'm going to do my 9 to 5, when it's or 4:30, whatever it is, and when it's time, you get up and you leave. Sometimes there's a crisis, you're never staying back. Say, oh, no, it's my right, I have a right to my work-life balance. But the honest truth is that in the real corporate world, nobody makes it far without sacrifices. Check it. Everybody who you see who's vice president, director, executive vice president has made significant sacrifices, right? And it's not like you can't balance work and life. It's important, but you would have to make sacrifice, and we must be ready. So I look at Joseph. I'm saying, he delivered value in all the places where he worked, and even as a prime minister, he delivered value. He delivered solutions. So anybody who delivers solutions would make it far. I mean, I look at myself. I mean, over the past couple of years, I've helped establish new business. I mean, new professional practices, or I've helped set up a new department or embed a new system. Those are things that your boss will look at and say, okay, this guy is value adding to me. When I, a couple of years, about 2 years ago, right, I said I wanted to leave my company. Like, I wanted to just spend more time with family, etc. And they came to me and said, I mean, we anything you want, we'll try and do, be flexible, etc. So we did that flexible for a couple of years, and then I said, hey, I really need to spend time with family. And that's why I told you I just took a career break. I really need to spend time with my family because, I want to be there with kids growing. I don't want to be working internationally all the time and all. And then the CEO said to me, see, the company has a lot of problems. This is a multi-billion-dollar company I'm talking about, right? A company I said has more than 50 million customers. So effectively, they could pay for anybody. So the guy says, the company has a lot of problems. Think of a problem you can solve. Come to me with a solution. Give me a bill, and I'll make it happen. I just want you, even if you're not working for us directly, be a consultant, just solve our problems. And I'm thinking, I look at it and say, that's a good testimony, right? A good testament to the fact that I've done some value for the added some value for them. And that's what I encourage young people, professionals, people of color to do as part. Focus on delivering value wherever you are, and you move ahead. I think the final thing I would say about Joseph's life, which again people find very hard, is perseverance. 13 years is not a short period of time. 13 years from age 17 to age 30. He was a little boy at 17, 30 was prime minister. And you're wondering, can I wait 13 years to find a solution? People don't realize, for example, that Google, for more than 10 years, is an unknown company. Google, for more than 10 years, nobody heard of it. We never knew there was a company like that. They were slugging away. So while we see a lot of success stories in the news and you hear it in capital markets, it's a startup, etc., etc., many of the great companies spend 10, 15, 20 years in the background. And people say, I don't have that time. But the honest truth is that if you're going to do anything enduring, anything of value, I mean, look at the Prophet Muhammad. How much time between when he got his vision and when he went on the earth, when he started propagating the gospel? It's not 2 months. Look at Christ, right? Christ, was seen in Jerusalem at age 12. Didn't start his ministry until age 30. 18 years. But people just want to how do they say to my country? They say you want to just hit, you want to make it, right? You want to blow up, right? But I mean, especially with like social media and all that. So, somebody went from, I have 2 million subscribers, 5 million subscribers, followers, etc. There's nothing that is good that doesn't require years of hard work, not months of hard work, years of hard work. And so I think perseverance is pretty important. If I look at my own life, when I was writing my professional exams, there's one exam exam I should have taken maybe in 2 years. It took me 6 years to write, not because I was failing the exam, but because my company didn't want me to take that exam. That they want to pay for it, so they were not going to give me time for the exam. So I had to take it on my own time. And then I would schedule the exam. I would say I'm working in, say, let me make it easy. Working in Toronto, right? I'm working in Toronto. I said, schedule the exam for Toronto. And then what happens? The company will post me to Ottawa on the exam day. So that happened multiple times. But at the end of the day, I said, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to, and now, interestingly enough, as soon as I got it and I told them I have this exam, I have this certification, they started putting on all the proposals, for their new clients. See, hey, we have somebody who has this UK certification. He understands IFRS. He can do all this stuff. Like, I'm saying, people just don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on what you have a clear vision for. I mean, just going back to wrap up what I said, you must have a very clear idea of where you want to go. You must do it with integrity. I don't I mean, in my personal life, I don't encourage anybody to do any to cut corners. Do it with integrity. You would not regret it. You must have, be prepared for that role you want to achieve. About invest in studies, certification, learning, reading. I mean, for example, I read a lot. Last year I read more than maybe almost 60 books last year, right? I've lowered my target a bit this year because I want to read a few longer books, right? But I have a target of 36 books this year. I mean, I don't need to read for my career, right? But I think it's important to keep yourself fresh all the time, no matter how old you are, no matter how successful you are. If you don't learn, you are dead. People need to be prepared. People need to deliver value. I mean, actually perform. When given a task, I think, you need to really deliver value. And finally, you need to be patient and kind of wait it out. Don't give up. Those are my thoughts. Those are the things that have driven me, and those are the things I think have driven Joseph, right, or Yusuf, and and we all know the results.
What an answer. It's been a long time since we had someone give such a long, elaborate, beautiful answer. And like you said, Prophet Joseph, in Islam, he's named Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Such a beloved person. His story, the perseverance, the purpose, the purity, preparedness, performance, like all the things you covered, is the reason why we love his story. Is because, like, yes, he had a vision from the time that he was young, and he had to go through things that was not known to him. He didn't know that his brothers would turn on him. He had no idea he'd be captive and sold as a slave. He had no idea that he'd end up being a servant, and then obviously trying to run away from the boss's wife that was trying to take care of him. Actually, not take care of him, trying to lust him, right? And even him being in prison and
Yeah.
having to interpret the dream, and then being
Yeah.
called by the king, and then obviously to have that role as the finance accountant for Egypt at the time, and then ultimately for the family to come back in that whole full circle moment, when they bowed in front of him. It's a beautiful story. It's a lot of lessons that we can learn from. And I loved how you connected each P, obviously, as far as your story in corporate, with his whole journey. My question to Osama is, because Osama has experience working in the corporate world as well, when it comes to the different things that Esau has talked about, is there any of the P's as far as purpose, purity, preparedness, performance, perseverance, or patience that you yourself see that's similar to the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam?
Well, all of them, I think. I think just to add on to Esau's point, I think all five of them go in to any life. Like for example, purpose, right? If your purpose is, for example, to be, I don't know, like the mayor of a city or the premier of a city of Ontario, I'm in the believer that you could do whatever you want, putting yourself around the right people. So, and this is why it's really important to not just trust everybody. For example, you just said that Yusuf AS Salam, his brothers, they went against him. They sold him out because obviously Yusuf, his dad preferred him over his brothers because of like how loved he was, right? So your purpose. So now it's like they came from jealousy. So my purpose, the thing is this: in the corporate world, because I work corporate, I deal with a lot of clients. You're gonna told a lot of no's, and it doesn't matter about education. Doesn't matter how smart you are. It's more about, okay, this person thinks he can outsmart me. I'm gonna go back to my drawing books and see what I can figure out. Your purpose has to outshine your degree. Your purpose has to outshine yourself. It has to be so high to the point where, again, we know that you're gonna go through trials and tribulations. If your purpose is gonna keep getting defeated every single time we take a challenge, you're not gonna survive. Like for example, put yourself in Yusuf's shoes. For example, you got put in a well, and then and this is like thousands and thousands of years ago, bro. Again, there's no iPhone, there's no Androids. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. No 911. You're in the middle of nowhere, right? So it's like at that age, he was able to like still be with God and like, okay, cool. Like I know I'm alone. I'm still with God. So again, that purpose, being with God and having a purpose, is really important because I'm a firm believer in you can achieve whatever it is you want. There's a lot of successful people out there who have not a single bit of education, but their wisdom and their purpose, their drive, their perseverance is so high at an ultimate level that they don't give up. They keep teaching themselves stuff. The average person doesn't always go to school. And if you go across the world, the average person does not go to school. A lot of the times it's them actually working on themselves and be like, okay, cool. You were saying a story how like you would always go with numbers and math and like you were always like budgeting. A lot of people have these skills from day one, right? Something it also says is preparedness, but preparedness in the sense of like you'll never be ready, but be prepared for the worst and the best. Make sure any outcome that you know how to tackle it. I was having a conversation with one of my old coworkers, and she was saying she hates talking about negative stuff. I'm like, by you not talking about negative stuff, you're thinking that life is always gonna go your way. It's not gonna go your way. You have to be prepared. Do you think Joseph was prepared to be thrown in a well? No. But the question is, how did he respond to it? The question is, and he went to jail. How did he respond? What's your response to like every single situation that happens to you? I think the three of us selectively, respectively, sorry, we all go through stuff, and we cannot compare each other's like problems or like successes because again, to the three of us, from where we were 5, 10 years ago to where we are now, we are successful, right? If you compare, and I think performance is really what I loved about performance is you need to compare yourself to the past. Like I don't like when people compare themselves. Oh, I'm performing better than Mo. I'm performing better than Osama. Why are you comparing me to me? Like no one can. Don't compare yourself to other people because at the end of the day, that's how it drives you down. And I always use this beautiful quote: "Life is like driving a car. You stay in your own lane. You don't look at the rearview mirror. That's your past. Your side mirrors are your competition. You can look at your competition, but don't focus on your competition. You can look at your past to learn from your mistake, but don't focus on your past. And I think the story of Yusuf AS salam is so beautiful because there's so many different parts of his story that you could take from it and learn from it, right? Whether it's his relationship with his father, whether it's the fact that he became king, he had a dream that the whole world was gonna bow down to him. He became king, but so you said something which really captivated me, and I want to say it again. There's not a single person at a high level that's never had to endure some sort of pain or some sort of struggle. No one gets in that stature, and I don't care if the struggle is like to you it might be like that's not struggle, but to him he had to go through that. That's his test. Mo, for me and you, we know in the past 5 years, this year April, how many pain we had to endure for ways to actually become a thing. At one point, it didn't seem like it's a thing. 5 years ago today, we're having a conversation on episode 130 with Eso talking about performance, purity, purpose, and perseverance and preparedness. And all the stuff that we went through allowed us to be here. So that's why I just wanted to mention that last part because I love how you said that.
One beautiful thing for me is purity. Because like you said, when it comes to purity, like the whole integrity, the honesty, because when you think about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, is the fact that he was so content in who he was. He didn't ask for more, but for what he was, he gave it his all. And because of that, every person he came across was mesmerized by him for that. And like you said, that value is the fact that his brothers saw something in him that they knew they didn't have. But instead of learning that from him, they decided to do something that was wrong. But even in that attempt, it only made him better. It only made him grow because he had faith in God. He knew why he was here, he knew why he was created, and he knew his purpose once again. And even when he was in jail, because the thing is, he's isolated. He's isolated in the well. He's isolated when he's in prison. But even in those times, it's not like he's depressed. It's not like he's angry. It's not like he's bitter. He is literally thankful because he knows that God, his relationship with God, his faith in God, his belief in God, God is letting him know because of who you are and the fact you're so pure and not turning to other pathways that could lead you to a bad direction, I am going to reward you. I'm going to keep you at peace. I'm going to keep you safe. Because most people think like, hey, classic example. If you're in high school and you want to go to a party or go somewhere with your friends and your parents are like, don't go. And you think your parents don't understand. The reason why your parents are telling you not to go is because you're going to a place. Yes, you might be a good person. Your friend might be a good person. But what if it's only 2 good people surrounded by 100 wolves and something goes wrong? You're a sheep. Gets to get to eat on alive first. You won't make it out. And that kind of scenario could happen so much. So it's better for you to stay at home. It's better for you to stay in the library. It's better for you to do something productive that's going to make you grow, like Eso was doing from the time he was growing up. Like he said, who was doing that as a young person? Taking notes, recording accounts of money from his parents. That's a skill that's transferable. It transfers to different things from analyst to vice president. So when you think about Yusuf alayhi salam, when it comes to purity, even when him and his relationship with the woman, the fact that he was so content and at ease and didn't want to go beyond the he didn't want to go beyond what society was deemed or allowed, which obviously didn't make any sense at the time. And even then, regarding to women, made him even more lustful, more attractive. But he didn't give up. He didn't give up. Instead of resorting to lust, instead of resorting to the boss's wife's whole demand, he decided that running away was the better option because he knew that God is with him at all times and God is always seeing. And when you have that faith and that belief and that understanding, like Eso said, you will go anywhere because that value, you can't measure. You can't put any dollar or any value on it. It's incomparable.
Also, just to add on to your point about like when you're with God, you won't go nowhere. When you're younger, you think it's cringy. You're like, don't want to be religious, don't want to be this, don't want to be close to God because you think you're gonna get laughed at. But you said it yourself. You are the sheep, and you're the sheep if you think that you're gonna survive on your own. There's not one moment where I'm like, I could do this on my own. This is the bit. Like, ask yourselves. Ask yourselves the worst, like one of the worst moments you've had, and how did you come out of it? It's not because of like your strength or your knowledge. No, it's because you had faith with God and your patience. And you know the one thing that people like always want to overlook is patience. Prophets had so much patience. Like a lot of them have endured so much pain, more than we will ever endure. Like, and obviously we know as Muslims know that. What's the quote? God will never put you through anything that your soul cannot endure, right? But the reason why the prophets went through so much is a lesson for us. It's like those were the chosen ones, and I still made them go through stuff because it's a test for them as well. That they're gonna go back to God, right? And I think for Yusuf, one thing, or I think any prophet, whether it's Jesus or that's Muhammad, peace be upon him, or like Yusuf or like even Adam or Abraham, they all had one goal, and that goal is to be close to God. Yes, they're human beings too. They felt certain stuff is like where were they in certain moments, but they still resort to going back to God. So I think in my situation, like any situation you're in, resort going back to God because again, your time here is limited. I don't care if you live 100 years. 100 years is limited. When someone at 100 years old passes away, what do people say? Oh, he or she was young. You're always young in this like in this world, right? So I think it's really important to connect yourself with a higher source of power. Ensure that you're good around good people because if you're around bad people, what's gonna happen to you? You're not gonna be successful no more. If you want to be a vice president or a president of a company one day, or you start your own company, your friends are people who are low lives who like to drink on a Friday night or Saturday night. You're not gonna be that president you think you are. Maybe the president of like potato couches, but you're not. You're the president of a company.
Yeah, I just want to share something very quickly before you move on, right? A conversation I had with my
Yes.
wife a couple of years ago. She was, I think, the conversation around, oh, work is so stressful. I don't want to do this anymore. Just like, oh, I'm gonna quit. So kind of just like a brain, something just hit me. Like everything that is good is difficult. Just think about it. Everything that we consider in life to be good is difficult to achieve. For example, getting an education, getting married and staying married, raising kids, buying a house, buying a car, everything that we actually consider that we look forward to, as aspire to is difficult. Now, if it was easy, everybody would do it. The reason why not everybody does it is because it's hard. So if you look at your situation and say, I can't do this, it's too difficult for me. You're just saying to yourself, I'm average, nothing special, I give up. If you want to be above average, if you want to be special, if you want to be successful, then you have to pass through that hard thing make hard decisions to get there. That's my thoughts.
Exactly. Can I add on to your point about that? Because recently we had like we saw me and Mo saw one of our friends, and he was telling me not to be motivational. I'm like, I'm not even being motivational. I'm just being honest. Like, if you're not gonna put your, like as you said, if you're not gonna work towards something you want, you're not gonna get it. It's just like it's cliche. It's how life is. Like, let me ask you, like when you're this is the best example I can give. One of the best examples I can give actually. When you're a kid, kids have huge imagination. Do you want to know why? Because they're so honest with themselves. But then when you get older, you start surrounding yourself between dumb people who tell you, Osama, I don't think you could do that. But the thing is, they know you could do that, but they're just trying to like bring you down because they're like, they know they can't do that. You could do whatever you want. Yes, there's gonna be pain. Nothing. There's not a single person I've ever met, unless you're like Donald Trump or like Kylie Jenner, who got in like who got in well from their family. But there's not a single person that I met who's like gotten things on their own. No, there's a work to it. Ask anybody, whether it's like Muhammad Ali. Like, do you think Muhammad Ali's journey to becoming the greatest boxer of all time was easy? No. People said he sucked in the beginning. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. You could talk about basketball. Michael Jordan didn't even make his high school basketball team. Wayne Gretzky was too small to play hockey. I think every single person has a test, and it's unfair to compare yourselves to each other. I think greatness comes within yourself, knowing that no one can, that you are only your competition with yourself. I personally only like the mirror, like there's a mirror right here. I only look at myself as my own competition. If Osama is better than Osama was in 25, I've done something correct. If Osama was the same person at 25 as he is in 28, I've done something wrong with my life. And I think that's why people don't achieve anything.
Another question I have for you. This is Black History Month. And with Black History Month, we often look to celebrate where we came from. We look at the pain that we endured, and we try to figure out we as a people can go forward together, united. Yourself, being born in Nigeria, the fact that you have education and you've been able to travel around the world for business, international, local, at any scale, going from an analyst to vice president, is very unique. It's not known, it's not celebrated enough. But we look to those who might say things that are bad for us, poison us intellectually, and make us live a lifestyle that is not helpful for us as a people. When you see someone like yourself in your position, and you know that you are literally in a position that's not normal for people who look like you, does that give you pain, or does that motivate you to want to talk to more youth to let them know that, hey, you can do it? What I'm doing right now is not rare. It should be the norm, and it starts with you. Do you feel that weight on your shoulders?
Uh, I don't really feel a weight, but I'm just a bit sad that, I think people of color generally tend to pick the wrong role models, right? Why am I saying this? So, if you think about it, we are very successful in say sports, and you ask yourself, what's the success rate in sports compared to in corporate, or compared to in business, right? So very few people are going to be LeBron James, but that's where the typical, you know, black person wants to. I want to be LeBron James. Or we look at Jay Z, or what's that lady's name now? The one who swears a lot, like Cardi B, right? And we look at, and those are the role models that we have, right? Unfortunately, we are focusing on an area where there's very few opportunities, so to speak. I said to my son, and this may be like, I don't know, this sound happy to have to edit this out. I said to him, in every skin color, two plus two adds up to four. Whether you're black or white or brown, yellow, green, whatever, two plus two is four. I would encourage, people of color to focus on areas where discrimination is, bias if it happens, it's obvious. So if I submit a paper to you where I've done something computational, there's only one competition answer to a computational question. I'm not saying the arts are bad, but if I'm doing something in the arts where a professor can say, I don't see any skill, and he's the authority, and nobody can challenge him, and I can't objectively challenge it, it's a bit difficult. So I encourage people to do things that are quantifiable. Do a business that is quantifiable. Do something that you can touch the value, and it doesn't require somebody else who may or may not be biased to determine whether you're successful. The other thing is that I think people should aspire. It's Black History Month. People should aspire to CEO roles, aspire to EVC roles. Now, you may say it's difficult to get, but the honest truth is that you don't even have. Sometimes you look and you say you don't actually have the numbers to get there. For example, I look at, say, Canada. If you look at in the educational system and say how many people graduate, you say how many people graduate who are from, say, Asia, right? Probably much higher than people graduate who are from Africa. And so you already start with a disadvantage. So I think those are things people need to correct in terms of st- get an education, stay in school, or even if you start a business, don't aim to run a business at a minor scale. I mean, I want to be a tradesman, for example. I want to go learn to be an electrician or a plumber or a guy who does carpentry or bricklaying. Now, I shouldn't. Real purpose for a black man or man, some of color, is not to say I want to be working in different house. You ask yourself, when will I be able to control a team of people who deliver this service across Ontario? I think that is where people need to dream, because if you don't dream big, you're gonna just be, if I say to myself, "Oh, I'm living in Canada now. I don't think a black man can be anything other than an analyst." That's where I'm going to be, right? Even though I know that literally everybody, all my friends who came here a couple of years ago, gone through the ropes, are all in senior roles, vice presidents, partners in businesses, CEOs, etc. So I think that's the belief in it. So if I look at myself, I'm saying, okay, yeah, there's a responsibility for where I am, but I don't feel that pressure, because I believe that, as well as you apply these principles we talked about earlier on, you succeed in any country, in any culture, and especially if you are doing something that cannot be gainsaid. Somebody can't say, I mean, a good report is a good report, irrespective of the color of the skin of the person who's produced it.
And no, beautiful answer once again, and it makes sense as far as, like you said, the purpose, the fact that we don't dream big enough in different areas outside of the sports, music, entertainment fields. The fact that we don't see ourselves in different areas and apply ourselves within those spaces leaves us out. And the fact that other races get that head start from the time they're young, and by the time they get to 20s and 30s, they're already taking over as far as those positions and stuff, right? So we might think it's exclusive based, but we don't include ourselves in those areas as well.
I read a book recently that was talking about the statistics, and this is something very you not think about. The statistics in marriage. You wouldn't believe that, assuming that Africa is very conservative, right? You would assume that black people around the world get married and stay married. Actually, the rate of single parent homes, using America as a study, um, for black people is declined to, it's sorry, expanded to maybe more than almost 70% of black families or black children grow up in single parent homes, compared to white families where it's about 50%. Now that differential is major. You don't know, because statistics show that when both parents are not together, I'm not even saying about them being married. I'm not being but the fact that they are together raising their kid allows the kid to stay in school, allows the kid to do better. A simple thing. I have a friend who's separated from his wife and is paying alimony of $5,500 a month. Or no, sorry, child support, $5,500 a month. I'm saying, imagine $5,500 for three boys. $5,500 over a period of, you pay that month for about 4.5 years. That's almost maybe 250K or something, right? Imagine that amount of money split into down payments for three houses for those three boys. Those guys have a head start. But for that simple decision, I don't love her anymore, etc., that we do, right? He has cheated those children of their future. I'm saying, so I say to people, getting married, staying married in Canada, in the West, it's not a love decision, it's an economic decision. You need to make that economic decision for your children, or else you dissipate wealth, you are poor in the next generation. Just wanted to add that.
No, it's a beautiful aspect. And it's something we don't think about. It's beyond what we imagine and what we can even fathom of. And that's why my next question to you really is, you travel. You're a person that's able to travel when it comes to work. And like you talked about before, and I asked you, the fact that people of color are not exposed to that, do not get to see that. Explain to someone right now that's whether in school or someone that has a startup business or someone that has a dream, and that's a person of color, like, hey, I might come from a place that's has a lot of poverty. I might come from a place that has a lot of crime. I must come from a place where I'm surrounded by racism or systemic racism and all these different things, prison industrial complex, all these things that hinders me from becoming and achieving to the next level, but I still believe and I still dream. If that person is willing to dream big and has not been able to see those people, but is listening to this podcast right now as you being one of the first, or if not the first exposure, just give them a day in your life in your job, as far as what you do from day to day, meetings on a quarterly basis, and the benefits that comes from traveling around the world, meeting different people, seeing different cultures. Doesn't matter the color of your skin, it's the fact that you provided the purpose, purity, preparedness, performance, perseverance, and patience. And that value has given you where you are today. So just explain a day in your life for someone who wants to dream big.
My you see, one of the things I would say about myself, I think it's something I would recommend for people. Maybe because of the my career or my personality, I can achieve a lot of things because my day is largely planned. A typical day for me will be up at somewhere between 3:30 and 4 a.m. I every day I have a devotional for about half an hour. Then I practice French because I'm trying to teach myself French. I'm about halfway there. Um, for about maybe under 30 minutes to an hour. I would go after that. I go for a run or a walk for about 1 hour. Come back, take a shower. Then head to work. I mean, a lot of times you're working from home, so you don't actually have to go to the train station. Then start walking, and then make sure that my phone has I set my phone to do not disturb from 7 a.m. to 4, right? So I can't, then I don't receive any personal calls, I don't check WhatsApp, I don't do anything like that. And then you attend meetings, you work on your reports. But again, it's good to plan because you achieve more if you plan. So typical, like at the beginning of the week, I would have like a plan for what I want to achieve for the week, what reports I have to do, schedule all the meetings, right? Even I schedule my personal life. So I would say there's date night, it's on my calendar. I would say I have a meeting with a friend, it's on my calendar. This podcast, it's on my calendar. So I think it's you may say it takes out the fun out of life, but the honest truth is that the advantage I have, because my life is scheduled, right? I can do more. So there's no way if I didn't schedule my life, I'll be able to read 61 books in 1 year, right? It's because there's time for it. There's a time, oh, this 1 hour in my day is for reading, or this 30 minutes is for French, etc. So I think that helps. Then I plan my vacations way ahead. Like my vacations are planned a year ahead, right? Where I'm going to go, who I'm going to be with, all that. So I think it helps. I know people like to be spontaneous. It's good to be spontaneous, but I can tell you for free, if you don't plan, you can achieve that much. Then talking about meeting people and traveling, one of the advantages I would say I have from traveling widely across the world, I think I've been to at least 4 continents, right? Is that you find out that a lot of the stuff you think about people and races are not true. Um, you would, I mean, I traveled extensively in the Middle East. I've traveled in Asia. One of my closest friends is Indian. You find out that a lot of the things that you hear in the news, a lot of it's political narrative. Not all of it is true, as to how the different races interact with each other. And then you find this out when you find maybe people who are maybe in interracial relationships, or where people have colleagues who are interracial. You find out that a lot of the stereotypes we hear are not necessarily true. I think that's broaden your horizon, not just, for example, at some point in time, just to broaden my horizon, I chose to listen to Fox News. Honestly, I couldn't survive it for long, right? But but I think it's good to hear. I can't just be a CNN person, or I think for me, I find BBC a bit more balanced, right? But at one time I had to, because CNN was extreme left. I said, okay, let me get extreme right, so I can pick, because at the end of the day, we are shaped by the things we know, and the things we don't know. help make us get make wrong conclusions. So I think it's important to travel. It's important to keep an open mind. I deliberately make sure that my friendship is wide, right? I cultivate relationship with different races, because I want to know how people think. That's the same reason, for example, why I read the Quran. I'm a Christian. It's not like I'm changing my religion, but I wanted to know. Okay, I have Muslim friends. I want to know how they think. Why is this festival important to them? Why is the prophet important to them? I need to know, right? That's how I can relate with empathy, with love, with my fellow man, and then work together.
It's incredible because everything you just explained and what you talked about, like I see Osama the same thing. Like the fact that he's been in the corporate world for the past few years, he's talked about wanting to go to the US, particularly California, and to work on a bigger scale, to do bigger things, but at the same time have that vision to do other things like the podcast and more. It's not that I don't call his bluff or I think he's a liar or I think it's not possible or he's out of his mind and he's been taken to the hospital for some psychic evaluation. I believe, I know it's true. It's only a matter of when because he is the uh, he is the personification of all these different things we talked about, especially the P concepts. And when he talked about learning the duality as far as CNN and Fox News, it's not that obviously you believe everything that Fox News is saying, is that millions of people are watching these television shows, these different ideologies and beliefs. And then if you just have an argument with them or a conversation with them and you don't understand where they're coming from as far as the roots, there's always going to be a problem. There's going to be no mutual ground. But by watching that and getting a background, full scale information as far as the programming, the content, what it entails, like you said, it broadens your horizon. And even you saying traveling across the world, meeting different cultures, I might think that a specific race or specific country wants to alienate black people on different scales, whether it's political, social, and economical. But by not going there or meeting people from there, you limit yourself. And I think it's beautiful as far as within this conversation and everything we talked about is that life does not cheat you if you do not cheat life. And if you know that, it's very it takes a long time to understand what I just said, but if you put in that work, you will not only see the other side, but you enjoyed every other minute. And the fact that you said scheduling, like scheduling is something that no one wants to do. It's not fun. But let me ask you this question, because Osama, this actually makes me think. People who wake up early in the morning, obviously we know, like they say the stereotype, like CEOs, vice presidents, everyone, they wake up like between 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. They start their days off early. The fact that you just said that 3:30 to 4 a.m. you start off your days, um, yeah, I just want to ask you typically why. What's the value of that? Because for me growing up and what I know, to wake up that early, and like you said, there is a part when you are devout, as long as being religious, that 30 minutes window. But why do CEOs wake up that early? I want to hear that answer from you and Osama because someone just listening, oh, I think Iso's lying and Osama doesn't know what he's talking about. Any CEO could wake up at 2 p.m. and start the day off. Why is it important to wake up that early?
No, 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 no. So I mean, just you want to control, how will I put it? It's you want to control the narrative of your day, right?
Well,
If you don't wake up to
that's
set
funny.
the foundation, the direction for your day, then somebody else will set the direction for you. So, for example, you wake up at 8, your first meeting is at 8:30 or at 9 o'clock. As you're walking into that meeting, you see an email that was sent the night before. You're not prepared to respond to it, right? And then you're not even in the frame of mind to deal with it. So the strength of those CEOs is that I worked with a CEO, CEO for Africa, for the multinational I work for, and he would respond to every email the same day it's sent. Now normally he will respond in blocks. If you send him a mail just before the end of the day, he will respond to everything. He comes in early, leaves early, right? He has a very balanced life. But if you don't take charge of your day, one of the things I've even found, is that the things you can do in that morning period between say 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., right, that would have taken you 3 hours, will probably take you 6 hours between 9 a.m. and the rest of the day because there are distractions. So that you're less distracted, you can focus, and you can really take charge and plan. That's why I think it's important to wake up early or start early.
The reason why I wake up early, here's the thing. I think it's obvious for me at least. Um, we have 24 hours in a day. About 8 hours of them you were asleep, give or take. Right? We're just gonna use 8 hours for now. So 16 hours that you're awake. A lot of people tell me you don't have time to do stuff. I hate excuses, and it boils my brain when someone tells. Boils my heart. I want to kill people when they tell me, "Oh my God." I'm like, no, you have time. Whether you like to schedule minute by minute, you have time. So, for example, you know you want to start a business, right? You don't need a degree about business. You want starting a business just to get ready and start educating yourself on the product, on the industry, and like you doing your own research on Google. Now you have Chat GPT, so I don't you don't have to hear an excuse. You wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, right? From 7 to 9, you're like, I'm gonna work 2 hours on researching. Okay, cool. From 9:01 to 10 o'clock, I'm gonna have my breakfast. From 10, so then from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, I'm gonna go back and do work. If you keep on a certain schedule, eventually, in the next 2 to 3 years, you're way ahead of your competition because you put in the work. The thing is, people who like, let me ask you a question. You just said something very eloquently, Mo. If you cheat the if the system won't cheat you if you don't cheat yourself. Is that what you said? So
I pretty much
if
said
I'm
like,
paraphrasing,
if you cheat life, then you're cheating yourself.
if you cheat life, yes, exactly. So if you put in the work, you'll get results. If you're gonna be late towards stuff, you're not gonna get anything. We have a good friend. He sucks at time, and if he's still listening, he sucks at time. Like he'll never get better. And I told him for years. I've known him my whole life. And I'm sharing this story because it's just a fact. I told him that if you took the time from when you were younger to focus on being better at time, you'll never have to worry to like build up now. You know how hard, you know how easy it is to fix a habit at 18 versus at 28 or 27 to but when you're constantly have that disciplined mindset, it's hard to get up in the morning and, for example, pray. It's hard to get up in the morning and, for example, go do work. It's hard to get in the morning and go to the gym. But what do those all three things have in common? It betters your life. You go to work, your family's able to eat. And about work, it's not about you, it's about your family like having to eat if you have a family. If the gym is not about the girls or like business, it's about your health, putting yourself intact.
And Eso, with that, before we leave, before we end this conversation, please give the audience, especially those people of color, as far as any advice you tell, as far as something that could help them, like the piece, pretty much the purpose, purity, preparedness, performance, perseverance, and the patience. One last thing to give people, especially those of color, as they take in this month, and obviously try to extend the palette because Black History Month is something you should think about every day as far as you can do for yourself, your people, your community, parents, and lineage, and obviously legacy. And at this point in your life, it's not like you're done. You're saying you're learning French in the morning. Like it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense to those who apply all these P's that you've been talking about. So, what is the value and all this that we've been talking about for the past hour?
I'll kind of like draw something from what Osama said earlier on. I would advise Black people um, to look through the windshield, right? There's a lot of baggage around bad government back in Africa, slavery over 400 years, you know, police violence, discrimination. But I think all those things are on the side, left, right, and behind. What's in front of us, I guess, is positivity and hope. And if you find that in every sphere in life, a black person is the president of the most powerful country of the world, there is no position on the planet that a black person has not held. Surgeon General, Minister of Finance, Prime Minister. You understand? Literally. So you say, if one black person can do it, why can't I? Right? And I don't like this dichotomy between people who were born in Canada or the US and people who were born in Africa, and they say, oh, these people are different and all that. It's not relevant. I'm thinking the important thing is that you need to just focus on the future. How can I be the very best at what I do? Whether I'm running a small business, whether I'm working for a company, if I'm the very best, at the end of the day, excellence doesn't hide. Excellence will eventually be rewarded. Just be excellent at what you do. That's my own. I have this motto on my WhatsApp. I think it's a quote from Aristotle, which says excellence is not is not an event, but it's a habit, right? You are what you do every day, so to speak. So if you practice, like someone said, if you practice waking up early for 18 years, it will be easy for the next 40. If you practice waking up late for the 18 years, then it's hard to break habits, right? So you practice a bad habit, it's hard to break. So in a nutshell, let's look at the future and be positive. The world is changing around us, but we need to be ready for that change. If, like Joseph, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we want a black prime minister," and you're not ready, then you can't get it, so to speak. So be positive. Look at the future.
You guys thought we were done? I don't think so. We still gotta wrap it up. Please follow me at Kusa300. Follow my co-host Muhammad at Muhammad.global. Make sure to follow our page at Instagram. Also, make sure to subscribe to all our platforms. We drop every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Thank you. We'll see you next week.